What is going on, everybody? I am back with another Keeping It Real podcast. I don't even know what's going on. It's middle of the day, and the sun is going. It's 2:30, and the sun is setting right now. I'm really depressed. It's what it is, but it's Friday. I'm very happy to have another Keeping It Real podcast. I think we're on number 25 right now, but I got a very special guest with me. As you can see in the title, we got I would say a world-class New Jersey middle school teacher. I got my friend Eric Struble right here, and we're going to have a beautiful little conversation.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, Eric? How you doing, bro?
Pretty good, dude. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, of course, man. Thanks for coming on.
Got off today. No school today. You know, this time of the year is like teachers' convention usually.
Usually teachers' convention.
But obviously that's not going on because of COVID and everything. But just chilling, man.
Just chilling. Just chilling. Oh, gosh. All right, guys. Just want to also say that me and Eric were friends. I'm friends with his younger brother. He's actually my age. And that's obviously how I know Eric. But I do want to just note everybody's acting a little crazy on social media with the whole election. And I already know this. Me and Eric kind of have different point of views. I mean, at the end of the day, we would probably agree on the majority of things. But we have small little things that we could sit here and argue for probably 2-3 hours of just like little fine details and little like misconstrued ideas and stuff. But we're not going to do that because we can look past that stuff and we can have a beautiful conversation. So I just wanted to get that out there.
No, it's important.
Everybody is really losing their mind and just like can't be friends with people and stuff. I think it's a little ridiculous. I understand people have gotten lost in the sauce. I think everybody has, especially the way the media has been promoting everything. But yeah, I mean, we're going to have a great conversation. It has nothing to do with politics, and I hope you can sit back, relax, and enjoy. But Eric, what's going on, bro? How you doing, man?
Pretty good, dude. I mean, like you said, the election and all this craziness is going on. But, you know, it is important to have these conversations regardless, you know, because I think that's what we're kind of missing out on right now, still having these, like, open conversations, even if you might have differences. So, no, I'm chilling, man. Thanks for having me on again.
That's great, man. So if you guys don't know, my boy Eric just got a teaching job in Hamilton Township School District. And it's pretty cool, pretty hard school district to get a job in general. Just a lot of teachers trying to apply. So number one, proud of him, pretty cool. And yeah, we're just going to be talking about like the process of going through college, figuring out what you want to do, getting a job, getting an internship, moving away, getting into the workforce, everything that has to come with that. A little bit of a life conversation going to be happening right now, but pretty excited. So, dude, TCNJ, yeah. What's the process of going to same high school as me? So, Nottingham, chilling, graduating. How many schools did you apply to? Was that the school you wanted to? I know they have a very good teaching program.
Yeah, so I guess, you know, in high school, I kind of figured out that I wanted to pursue a career in education. You know, I had a lot of teachers that kind of influenced me in my life. And, you know, it sounds cliche, but, you know, as a student going through, if you have tough times in your life, you know, sometimes a teacher may be there for you because you see your teachers almost as much as you see, like, your parents, you know?
That is true. Let me ask, what kind of things did teachers do for you? Because personally, I don't know if I've ever had, like, a close companionship with a teacher.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, like, you know, I had a lot of things going on in my life. I just feel like I was kind of a bad kid. Not like, you know, especially when I was younger, like elementary, middle school, you know, I was going through a lot of different stuff at home. And like, that's an emotional time for a lot of kids growing up. And I just had some teachers that, you know, were really there for me and would make that extra effort to try to connect with me. And then you also obviously have the teachers that, you know, you look back on and say like, wow, I really dislike that teacher. And honestly, like both of those experiences with those different types of teachers made me want to pursue a career in education because I felt like, you know, I wanted to do what those great teachers did for me. Mm-hmm. So then going to high school, you know, starting to think about applying to schools and stuff. I wanted to stay in state, just, you know, money-wise, it's a lot cheaper. I didn't want to be too far from home.
Okay.
You know, that wasn't something that I really wanted to do at that time. So I applied to a bunch of places in New Jersey. TCNJ was my top choice just because they have such a great school of education. It's one of the best in the Northeast for teaching. And I was lucky enough to get into TCNJ and, you know, kind of went from there. But TCNJ was definitely my top choice.
Top choice. So that's pretty lit. That probably was a good feeling. The school you
definitely.
really wanted to go to got accepted. So you did a double major. So it took you an extra year to graduate, and you have a history degree or a teaching degree?
So it's technically, a history degree, but it's history and secondary education was my, major. And I also had a minor in political science too, because when I went to college, I wasn't really sure, I was interested in politics and government and all that kind of stuff as well. So I picked up a minor in that. So yeah, it did take me an extra year to graduate. For people that are going to school, there's a lot of there's this whole pressure and stigma around graduating in 4 years. But I think it's important, you're only in college once. I mean, especially if you're just going for your bachelor's.
True.
And I think it's more important to figure out what you want to do rather than rush through the 4 years.
And then be like, oh, I got to look for a job.
And a lot of people are like, oh, I've already been in it for a year or two. I don't want to change my major now. But then you have to realize that's what you're stuck with now for your career.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it was a bad thing necessarily that I took an extra year. I just think that was the situation, my circumstances.
That's good. That's good. But do you want to use eventually? Could you use the political science degree in teaching? Because you probably teach poli-sci, right?
What I teach is 8th grade U.S. history. So a lot of that has to do with, we teach early U.S. history. So a lot of that has to do with the Constitution and how our whole government's set up. So obviously that kind of is intertwined with political science and
100%.
Politics and how government works. So honestly, I think having that minor didn't really, isn't the reason I got the job that I have, but I think it helps me and I think it gives me, a better perspective.
They probably did see that on your resume. It was like, oh, he's got this too, right?
I mean, it could have helped, but I don't know if it was the make or break thing,
Yeah, no, that's good though. That's why that's why they recommend these double majors and going back for school. So I also wanted to talk about the Bonner program. So what kind of was that? I knew you were a part of that. We talked about it a little bit back in the day, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm so happy looking back on college that I was a part of it. It's called the Bonner Community Scholars Program. Basically what it is they select, it's about 100 students, maybe give or take a little more, but about 100 students at TCNJ. You apply for the program. It's a scholarship program. Basically what you do is a lot of community service with a focus on social justice issues. So me specifically, I worked in the education division of the Bonner program. There's also, they focus on topics like food insecurity, the environment, things like that. And I happen to be, placed in the ed division, which obviously lined up with what I want to do with my career.
Well, that's good.
But yeah, you have to do 300 hours of community service a year.
So that was a requirement?
That was a requirement for the scholarship and everything. But it's actually a really organized program.
All right.
It's a whole organized process, and they set you up with a site that you go to.
Oh, that's good.
Being at TCNJ, we're super close to Trenton, which has a lot of these types of issues that we had focused on. So I did the majority of my 300 hours every year in the Trenton School District. So that was, it was really eye-opening because I didn't go to school in a city or an urban environment where they have a lot of different issues that I wasn't accustomed to, but also, the fact that I want to be a teacher, getting that firsthand experience with students.
Hands-on.
Yeah, it was awesome, honestly. I worked with a lot of great people. Greg Grant, he's a former NBA player, actually came from Trenton, went to the NBA.
Wow.
He runs a program called the Academic Sports Academy in Trenton. So he focuses on, maintaining, good academics, but also giving students an outlet where they can play sports and not have to be, on the streets or whatever else. So that was one of the things I worked on. But working in this Trenton School District was awesome.
You liked it? Hands-on? Gave you some good experience, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I worked with tons of kids.
What did you do there for the most part?
So with what I just talked about with the Academic Sports Academy, I was working with middle schoolers, which I'm now teaching now.
Yeah.
Working with them, trying to help them with focusing on literacy and math, because those are the two big ones that a lot of school districts.
I still need work on.
But that's like where the testing is really focused on, language and math now. But also just in general, having those skills, is like the key to success in a lot of areas.
For sure.
So working with kids, doing tutoring, mentoring, and then I also worked with high school students at Trenton High West, which is like the West Campus,
Okay.
the smaller school of the high school. And we did, basically that program was called Bridge to Employment, and we worked with...
Bridge to Employment?
Yep.
Okay.
So Johnson & Johnson sponsors that, the company Johnson & Johnson. Basically, we worked with students trying to help them find different career paths, getting them ready for higher education, college, or if they wanted to go to a trade school or the military or what have you. We basically just tried to open those doors for them and show them, kind of what those were, and working with them also on like SAT prep and ACT prep and all different types of things that
Applying to college. And
yeah,
things
exactly.
Like that.
We walked those kids through, how do you apply to these different schools? What is FAFSA? How do you apply for financial aid?
Okay.
Because honestly, it's a very complicated process, especially when it comes to like financial aid.
Very complicated. Very complicated.
Yeah, my family, we hired someone to help us with that, but obviously not everyone has that, ability, or so obviously not everyone has that, available to them or accessible. So yeah, we kind of helped those students with that process and everything. But overall, a great experience. I think that really changed my whole outlook on, how I look at education and how important it is, and the role of educators, teachers, counselors.
For sure.
So, definitely a beneficial experience, but it also provided like a scholarship for me.
Yeah.
So that always helps
That's
because money's a good thing.
That's what I wanted to lead into. So you had to do all these requirements, helping people. First off, getting experience in the field that you want to get in is just plus. But it was also helped you get loans or payments for colleges. Was it grants technically?
It was a scholarship.
Scholarships.
Yeah. So just
so you would have to do these requirements and then you would get the scholarship.
yeah, I mean, being in the program, you either get between 50 and 100% of your tuition paid for, depending on your family need. So students that were in the Bonner program that might have come from an upper class upbringing, they may have got a 50% scholarship. Other people may have got 75 to 100%, depending on your background and everything and socioeconomic status. Yeah. I got like 75% each year, but that's still, it was definitely a big help for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I remember being in high school and never even really hearing of the Bonner program. And meanwhile, I knew you were doing it, and I was still graduating, still not knowing anything. And it was just whether I could have done it, applied for it, whatever it was, just the information is still worth it. I definitely would. Just wanted to talk about that. So that's cool, man. That's really cool. So let's lean over. I just want to talk a little bit about fraternity life, just in the cool aspect of you became president senior year. And like, what was that like? What was some of the what are some of the benefits? I know we have the Zac Efron movies of living next to neighbors that are frats, which is pretty lit looking back on it. But there are some real like benefits, especially graduating, knowing someone that starts a business that you're a brother with, and then maybe you don't know what you're doing. You can just work with him. So what are some of the things that you found beneficial joining a fraternity?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw it from both angles because I didn't actually join a fraternity till I was a junior in college.
Okay,
and I did have 5 years of college, so I had junior, senior, and my 5th year in the fraternity. But I kind of saw that before I had really gotten involved. Well, I also commuted my first 2 years, so that obviously played into that.
And then you lived on campus.
And then I lived
house, right?
in off-campus housing with some of the guys that
the bros.
Exactly. Some of the guys that it does make you very, very tight with the kids that you end up joining with and everything. But right off the bat, like the superintendent of Hamilton Schools was a Phi-Psi brother.
Okay, that's cool.
And he went to TCNJ. He was in Phi-Psi.
I think he lives right down the street, buddy. Really? How you do?
So, I mean, right there, I mean, usually in fraternities, you see a lot of business majors and kids that really aren't in, ed majors. But I just happen to have the superintendent of Hamilton Schools as a brother of mine. one of my older fraternity advisors reached out to him when I was applying for a job. He said, "Hey, could you see about making sure this application, is at least seen by the right people?" And that just helps right off the bat.
Of course.
But honestly, like being in a fraternity, it was definitely a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of the friends that I made there are still guys that, will be in my wedding one day, and guys that like.
I was gonna ask, are those type of friends like you just?
Yeah. I mean, you're not gonna be best friends with all the brothers in your fraternity.
For sure, there's so many.
But yeah, I mean, I lived with over 20 guys throughout those couple of years that I look back on, and like some of those guys are my best friends. I still talk to them all the time. But it also provided leadership positions. Like you said, I ended up becoming the president for a year. And it's an interesting kind of dynamic because it is a leadership position, but like, you worry about things like partying, and then you also have to worry about real things like, different standards that like you have to.
What chapter you guys are on as a frat?
Yeah, like you have to run like meetings, and you have to work with the school, and you have to work
volunteer things that you guys do have to do.
Exactly, and I mean that's important stuff too. Obviously, like that doesn't need to be said enough. But like the volunteering stuff that we did, like that was just as important as the fun things too. But yeah, it's not like, TCNJ wasn't the type of scene like you see in movies, like you kind of talked about, where it's like humongous frat houses. It's not like down south, like places like, LSU or Alabama or whatever. But
Florida State.
Yeah, we still had fun though. Don't get me wrong. We still had fun, but I really enjoyed that. That really made my college experience like super.
Put the cherry on top.
Yeah, it was well rounded. Like you go to a good school for education, but then you also you have a good time, and that's really what it's about. Also,
meet good people.
Yeah, definitely
relationships. So, what was the process and feeling and emotions of graduating? You spent basically 5 years, quite a while, almost half a decade in college in one university, in and out of these buildings with the same people, talking to the same people, and now you're like, all right, now it's like it's test day, like you got to go out and get a job. It's job searching day. What is that feeling in that moment like?
It really is weird because now like it's such a quick turnaround. Like especially for me, I got a job right out of college, which I was definitely fortunate to do. But you go from like having fun with your friends every day, and partying and drinking and having fun with everyone, and then you flip real quick, and all of a sudden life hits you, and it's serious now. Like, and you almost feel like, am I even ready?
Teach a class full of kids.
Like, am I ready to be an adult? Like, that's really how I felt, especially like even today when I go into class, and some days I'm like, wow, this is so weird just being in this, and having my own classroom and having all these kids that I'm responsible for. But obviously, like my whole graduation process was different because of COVID. My whole last semester at college was basically virtual. And that was in the beginning of the pandemic, where like people were still trying to figure out like
what to do.
What do we do? Can we even go outside? Like people were freaking out. Like,
can we even go outside?
I remember like I quarantined with like maybe like 7 or 8 of the kids that I lived with.
It's low-key fun.
And we just had like the house to ourselves for like a few months. It was crazy, and we just like hung out. Like, we definitely bonded and got super close because we didn't really leave. We didn't know what to do.
Weird times.
Weird times. We had our graduation. It was virtual. Like literally, like you tuned into a live stream. The president spoke. Different deans of the college spoke. Different, like our student council president and vice president and different officers spoke. And we kind of just had like a small get together of like some of the guys that were graduating. Obviously, not everyone was even comfortable with doing that at that time. So it was weird, but then kind of turning around, like literally, right, leading up to graduation, I was starting already that application process. Looking for jobs, and I happened to see that there was an opening in Hamilton at one of the middle schools, and I was like, wow, this is perfect. Like this is 5 minutes from my house. This is the age group. This is social studies. This is U.S. history. Everything that I kind of wanted. And honestly, I prepared, as much as I could, did the application whenever the application like 10 times was like, do I have any mistakes in here?
That's what
Because
I
like
got.
I applied a couple other places too, but like that was the big one. And I
Yeah.
really wanted to get that. And then the interview was virtual. Like it's just like, honestly, I felt a little more comfortable. I'm not going to lie that it was virtual because like, imagine,
you got no pants on and you're just sitting
yeah,
there.
I was wearing like a shirt and a tie, but then I had like basketball shorts on and I'm sitting in my room like, as opposed to like sitting at a conference room table with like 10 other people.
Sweating like, oh God.
Yeah, like, so that honestly was it made me a little more comfortable. Obviously still super nervous going into that, but that was a quick turnaround. And then like I remember I was on the beach in the summer and my phone rings and I'm like, who's this? And I didn't even answer. And then I listened to the voicemail and it's the principal of the school that I applied to saying like, we'd like to hire you. And I was like so ecstatic.
Yeah. It's probably mad weird though. Like, what do? I answer
I know.
back? It's like,
I called him back. I like walked off the beach and called him back.
It's like,
but
I accept your job, sir.
yeah, I mean, it was also like a huge weight off my shoulders because
For
like
sure.
I know a lot of my friends have yet to get jobs because of like the pandemic and like certain places aren't hiring.
Oh yeah. It's gonna be a rough couple of months, maybe years.
Yeah, and I was like, if I don't get this, like, and I don't get some other the ones that I applied to, I might have to keep looking, and it is kind of stressful because like you're looking and like certain things aren't open, and you're like, well, this is an hour away. Do I really want to do this? And you're like weighing the pros and cons.
Oh yeah.
So
damn,
it was
kind of got that off your chest.
Yeah.
So now we just need to get the 10-year. No, but that's awesome. It's always good to get a place where you can less travel and
Oh yeah.
commute, and that's a pain in the what. Nobody enjoys
My
that.
commute is 5 minutes. I mean, I think about just about
Maybe
anyone
it's time
would
to get
would-
a bike
would take
and stop
that.
putting all that carbon footprint, Eric. Come on, now, man. You gotta get a bike. Right
Like I have friends that like they commute to the city every day, like New York
dude,
or Philly, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sitting in traffic." I'm like, "Thank God I don't."
My
have to
dad
do
takes
that.
the train to the city every day, bro.
Yeah, it's like
Terrible. He hates it.
yeah, it's
But
a lot, man.
What are you gonna do? I wanted to talk a little bit about. So now you're teaching. You're teaching what? Eighth grade.
Eighth grade U.S. history.
U.S. history, and is it all online? We are in. It's November 6th, so this might not be posted for another week, 2 weeks. Are you guys in? Is there kids in the class? Are you guys all online? I saw a few school buses going in and out of middle schools. I don't know what's going on.
So we are doing hybrid right now. All the schools in our school district are hybrid, which means basically all the kids are broken up into 3 groups: Group A, Group B, Group C, based on their last name. And one day it'll be an A day, and just the kids that are in Group A will come to school. Next day it's a B day, and those kids, and the next day it's C day, and those kids come in. So you only have about 30% or so of the kids in the school in person every day.
So there's going to be one group that only goes to school once a week.
Once a week sometimes.
Every break. Yeah, okay. That's
Yeah.
insane. That is terrible. That's
Like
crazy.
some weeks you'll go once, some weeks kids will go twice, and that's the max, really.
Wow.
Just because of how it kind of works out. But kids can also opt to stay remote. So, like, if their parents don't feel comfortable with them coming in.
So you just put Lisa in the back with her computer and she's just chilling there.
Yeah. But it's weird for, like, teachers and, because we have to communicate with the kids that are remote and hybrid, the kids that are in person and the kids that are on remote at the same time. So what I do is, like, I have my smart board behind me. I have, like, a cart. I have my 2 laptops on it. And I have the kids on a Google Meet on the one laptop, which is like all the kids that are at home.
Can they Skype on Google Meet? Is it all through Skype or is it
No,
like
it's
Zoom?
Google Meet is just basically like Zoom. It's like it's Google's form of like
Google just
video
hopped on that.
conferencing.
I never heard of that. They probably just made that during the
definitely did.
pandemic.
Yeah,
they
they
just
definitely
patented that.
But like all the kids have Google accounts like through the school.
Hamilton School District.
Yeah,
Okay.
because they all have laptops now, which is awesome.
I was about to ask, is there more laptops in the schools than there used to be?
Every kid has a laptop. Gets to take one home now. This is the first
Take
year
one home? Whoa, I don't know if I'm okay with my taxes. No,
This is the first year that Hamilton has that.
Dude, that's
So
crazy.
every kid in the school district, K through 12, has a laptop or some sort of device. Like
gonna be
kindergartners
like
have
that,
like
man.
a tablet. It's a little bit different.
Eventually, we're gonna teach the kids how to code and stuff. They low-key are gonna have to learn that eventually.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things are changing. That's for sure. Just like in the 5-year period that I wasn't in public schools, I've seen a lot of the differences already. But
What kind of differences that are like eye-opening?
well, I mean, the kids all know how to like use a lot of these apps and stuff that they need to use. Like Google Classroom is something that we use every single day. You know, I post assignments on there, announcements, any like reading material or any types of things is all through there. All the kids know how to use it. But like as an 8th grade teacher, a lot of my kids, they have a device at home too. So like, you know, they're pretty comfortable with using a lot of technology.
Yeah.
You know, curriculum wise, that's kind of changing. You know, it's a little bit different. And that would be a lot to go into. But I mean, specifically about technology wise, like it's so much different. Like I feel like when I was in high school, everything was on paper. Now everything is virtual. So it's like you can't even give kids any paper or any material right now.
You can't?
Because of the pandemic. They don't want people touching, you know. It's a lot. It's a lot. Hopefully we get back to a point where we could do that. I'm sure we will eventually. But,
hopefully.
But yeah, I mean, it's a lot. Like I have to communicate with kids that are at home. And it's also presented a lot of challenges for, you know, imagine you're the oldest sibling out of like 5 or 6 siblings at home. Because that's what one of my students is dealing with. He's at home, sitting in his living room or kitchen, trying to help his younger siblings get on their virtual Google Meets.
Yeah.
And get on their classes.
Their Wi-Fi's probably crashing and stuff.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like,
oh my gosh.
And you know, if you're an older sibling, like, and your parents are working during the day, that's
got a lot of
such
responsibility.
That's such a challenge, honestly. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, it's presented a ton of challenges that we never really have thought about until now. But trust me when I say, like, the people in education right now are grinding. Like, it really makes me respect. Like,
trust me when I say this. Joe Biden has the answers. 2020. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We're just kidding. Having fun out here.
Bro, it really made me respect like what educators do. Though,
that's
seriously.
good though. Like the superintendents and the board. Because
I mean, right now, like they're really responsible for keeping kids safe. Like, you know, we have to go in and get. Every day when I walk in the door, I get my temperature taken.
Just the temperature. I should have thought about asking all those questions.
Yeah. And if you're over whatever, if you have a fever, you go home. If not, you're good. You have to wear a mask at all times. There's hand sanitizer dispensers in every classroom now on the wall. They've installed them in every classroom.
That's good.
In the hallways, it's like it looks like an institution, like a jail. Like there's lines in the hallway where you have to stay to the right when you're walking the hallway against the wall. Again, like there's lines.
See, like, but where is there going to be a line drawn? I know it's crazy, and we're not doctors. It's what it is. But between like, it's almost like scaring the kids. Like, you know, the kids are like they can't breathe. They're suffocating in these masks. It's like wear the mask, and it's like it's a scary time. That's all it is. It's a complicated time. It's a scary time.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot.
And nobody's got the answers. That's the problem. Everybody think they know what's going on. It's complicated. Hopefully we can get back to a little bit of norm. I mean, the kids going back to school. I saw school buses the other day, and that honestly made me happy. I was like, you know what? I'll sit in this traffic. I'm okay with this.
Yeah.
There's like school buses going in and out.
It's funny because like a lot of my kids have even said like, I wish we could just like be in school every day. Like, dude, a lot of kids, like you think back and you're like, oh, kids are probably so happy that like we're remote because they don't have to get out of bed. They can just do class from bed. But like, honestly, a lot of kids are like, can we just go back to normal? Like, we want to just like not have to worry about all this.
When I was in school, I was never a school person. I was never like, I didn't like the work in school, but I loved being at school.
Yeah.
I really wasn't stimulated, but I was stimulated enough. Like when you're sitting home doing nothing, that's boring. I was always the kid that found that boring. And then if you stay home from school and everybody's in school, you can't do anything because everybody's in school. I was always the type of kid, like I'd rather be in school than anything else. Even though that's weird to say now because I did kind of hate school and I didn't really try that hard, but I definitely, like, especially when I was younger, like middle school, I never wanted to miss school. Like just talk to girls, guys, all my friends.
Exactly. Like it's about like the social. It's really like a lot about the social interactions and stuff too. Like seeing your friends every day, seeing certain people. Like yeah, like that's really what it's more about than sometimes even like the super specific academic things. You know.
For sure.
So.
But so there's some kids that are just staying full virtual, some kids that are just like not showing up. And then you got kids. All right, so the kids that are showing up now, they don't have to do anything virtual, just show up once, maybe twice a week.
So when they're in my class, they still have to be logged on to our Google Meet because like for example, you can like share your screen on Google Meet. So like say we're doing like a reading and in normal times I would give them all a handout of the reading or whatever. Instead I might share my screen on my laptop and I will, we'll go through whatever it is. It could be anything from like a reading to a video to whatever, and they can all watch it. Like even, so even the kids that are like in person, they still have to have their laptops open and still have to be doing work. It's not like it's different. It's just the only difference is they're in person. And I only usually have like 3 to 5 students in a class at a time in person.
That's insane.
And they're all spread out. They have to be, I have to make sure they're socially distant. They sit in specific seats. Like
gotta do what you gotta do.
So yeah, it's a lot going on.
Oh man, that's a scary sight.
It's definitely an interesting first year.
That's what it is. It's
I'll never forget.
Interesting first year of teaching, bro.
I mean, they say you never forget your first year. I mean, I'm definitely never gonna forget this. It's crazy though because like I'm honestly having a little bit of an easier time than some of the veteran teachers because like they've never had to use this kind of technology.
Some of them have just been grading on notebook. It's like I'm not going on the computer.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's teachers that have been there for 20, 30 years, like that are really struggling with all these different things. Like for me, I mean, I've used Google and all the different apps for the most part. Like it's not that hard for me to adjust to that, but for older teachers, it's a whole different story.
It's a whole nother world, low key.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask, smart boards. Any upgrades with the smart boards since we've been in school? Or are they the same old smart boards?
Pretty similar, I would say. Similar. I mean, I don't remember like if every single room had them, but
now every room probably does have them.
Yeah, every room has a smart board. Honestly, I would utilize it more if everyone was in person because like now I have to share my screen anyway.
Yeah, you have to
on my own laptop.
Yeah, it's such a process, man.
I still have it on and like will like show certain things on there for my kids that are in person, but like. I won't utilize it more till everyone's back, really.
All right, so I definitely wanted to touch on what. So it's U.S. History 1 or 2?
It's 1.
All right.
So that's like early. So
what are you guys teaching? What's the curriculum that they're teaching these damn kids? What are we teaching the youth? I want to know.
People have this, I think, notion. A lot of people nowadays that like we're teaching something so much different than we used to teach, but. It's still a lot of the same information, but maybe we've learned some more since we've been in school than...
Let me add this. I think some of the textbooks are pretty much in depth, and I think you're right. I think the majority of kids just don't really learn. So hear me out on this. We learn about the judicial system, the executive. We learn about our government in 4th grade. I'm 9 years old. I broke my leg when I was 9, so I really missed most of the year, and they still passed me. So that's probably why I don't know what's going on with the election. But no, like seriously, they give us these projects about what's the judicial branch, the executive branch, the legislative. I'm 8 and 9 years old. I feel like it's like almost useless. And then you go into high school, and then middle school is weird. I feel like there's such a blur. There's almost such a blur going on. I feel like we should emphasize probably U.S. history a little bit more towards the later ends of high school. Like I feel like we should emphasize the important things towards the later ends of high school. Like financial classes should be like junior, senior year. Like I took a financial class freshman year. I'm 14. You know what I'm saying? I mean, at one point I was probably 13. You know, it's just like it's not really relevant. And sometimes I feel like that might be on purpose. Like, why are we learning about the government when we're in 4th grade? Like, I just don't really understand that. It's so weird to me. But like I was saying, I think the textbooks do talk about a lot of stuff that's in depth, but I mean, personally, there's maybe some smarter kids that are talking shit right now. Like, I understood exactly what was going on. But like, I don't know. Some of the things with me, like, I just couldn't grasp all this. Like, we're learning about Louis the 16th and King Henry. And I'm like, what the hell are these real people? You know, like, it was just really interesting that, like, I don't know, the way they space it out, the way they teach us some of these things super young. I feel like the emphasis should be towards the end of high school. Like, senior year was almost a joke for me.
I mean, different districts do it a different way. They
sure.
teach it in a different order. I know, like, when I did student teaching, I did that in Burlington City, and for 11th and 12th graders, they had a class called civics, which is basically where you just learn about our government specifically, like, like what's included in the Constitution, what our three branches are, how important voting is, you know, what the different positions in local, state.
You said 11th, 12th grade, they learned this?
That was there, yeah. So that was kind of going to your point, like that's a little bit later where they focus on it. Whereas other places,
we're in the workforce a little bit. We're paying a little bit of income tax or something.
Yeah, and I had a lot of kids when I was doing student teaching that, like you said, were starting to work and like they had cars and like they were almost at that age, or I had some 18-year-olds that could vote, so they can start participating. But I mean, I think it's also important too, like in elementary and middle school, you don't go in depth, obviously, but I think it's important to, like, you know, at least introduce these concepts to them, because like if you get to 11th and 12th grade and you still don't know anything about our government, you know, you might not be in a great position, but like, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't know, like when you get to that age, at least if you have taken it in middle school, like you have like a baseline knowledge of it.
Yeah.
So that's what like my course kind of focuses on. We start with the colonies, you know, Jamestown and Plymouth and those early colonies.
Lit.
And how they were kind of set up, and how they set like the precedent for the type of government we have now. Mm-hmm. We go to the 13 colonies, what kind of led up to the Revolutionary War, why we were so pissed off at Great Britain and how they were ruling us. No taxation without representation.
It's like the same story, though. It's like,
it is.
You gotta tell the right story, Eric.
It's funny because it is like a story, especially when you teach it to younger kids. You have to teach it like a story, so it makes sense.
So
you're
they
like,
can remember it.
You're like, think about this. Like, would you be mad if someone did this to you? Like, didn't give you a say in something that you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we do that, and then you get to like the Declaration of Independence, the Revolutionary War. And then you start learning about the Constitution and how our government was set up, why it was set up that way, what kind of things contributed to that, why do we have the Senate and the House of Representatives, two different houses, why do we have a president, why do we have a Supreme Court, and all these types of things. And that's like the big focus is the Constitution. Like that probably takes up, I would say, about a third of the whole course. Is learning about the Constitution, the ins and outs of it. Obviously, teachers can teach it a different way and focus a little bit less on it than others, but that is a big focus, is like learning about the Constitution.
I learned about in 8th grade history. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
Well, we finish with the Civil War, so keep that in mind. You go all the way up to the Civil War.
Okay, so I remember going to Gettysburg. That was lit.
So like the first third of the course is, like I said, up to the Revolutionary War, Declaration of Independence. Second third is like Constitution, the early presidencies of like, you know, Washington, Adams
and stuff.
You know, how they kind of set the precedent, because like, for example, George Washington set the precedent for only having 2 terms in office. Like,
but didn't he win? Like, didn't he do more than 2 terms?
He could have. No, he didn't. He could have, and he was like, you know, I think that in the government that we have, I think it's a good thing to not have a ruler for life or anything like that.
George Washington, the GOAT, real American. Freaking slave owner, colonizer. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, and that's...
Then there is like 2 parts of history a little bit.
That's
and then
like,
you also can't teach a little bit because, or what are you going to tell these girls that, they're also raping and pillaging and all these communities, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, what do you touch on? What do you not touch on? And then what is the school district allowing you to touch on is probably a thing you got to talk about.
That's the thing. Like, that's kind of a difficult line you have to walk, because like, George Washington and John Adams, these guys were important. They also did things that wouldn't be socially acceptable today. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of like
Most people in those times didn't, though.
exactly,
Which is
exactly because
lost
that
in
was
sauce
kind
as
of
well.
like the way they lived, and
Yep.
and we look back on it now, and we say that was so horrible and everything, and it's true,
evolved.
but
It's true. We evolved, though.
yeah, exactly. So society has changed over time.
They also did some very important things, though, that we can't.
Oh
Just
yeah,
like
that's
scientists.
that's what I'm saying. Like they set up how our government works, and and we kind of trust that this system is good for our
Do
country.
you trust that this system is good for our country?
I do. I think there's minor flaws to it.
But overall, it gets the job done.
I think it's a good system, especially when you compare it to other countries.
There you
know,
go. Yeah,
I think
there you go.
just the way.
I would agree with that.
I mean, we need like a representative democracy. That's the type of government we have. Like, we're such a big country. You can't have like a direct democracy where people are. Direct democracy would be like where everyone votes on every issue.
Most
Like,
people don't
I'm at-
know what the hell they're talking about.
We
That's
can't
the
even really
problem.
get we can't even get 65-70% of Americans to vote in the presidential election. So like,
Oh yeah.
I think having a representative democracy is important. I think there are some things that kind of impede the progress of like certain things in government.
What kind of things would you say impede the progress?
Like in Congress, for example, there's just so many. I don't know what is that word? It's like a loophole, where like you can basically stop, certain things from happening if you have the majority in the Senate or the House. And obviously, we think in retrospect, like that's a good thing because we've elected those people. Each state has chosen these people to represent them. But it also comes a time where it's just like, certain people can't get things done because there's people just working to stop that. I don't know. I don't even know how to go specifically to dive into it. And it would be like a lot of different things to pick at. But, and even like our voting process, there's definitely some minor flaws to it that could be improved.
Whole
I don't know
college.
Exactly.
Who knows
like,
if it's going to be better without it? Who knows? We'll have to see.
The electoral college is definitely something that like I think is going to continue to be looked at. Like, and as time goes on, we'll see if it changes or not. But there's definitely some flaws with it. Like this week, leading up to election day and everything, I was talking to my 8th graders about, and obviously they were in 4th grade when the 2016 election happened, right? So they didn't really know much about it. But I said, would you believe me if I told you that Hillary Clinton got almost 3 million more votes than Donald Trump in that election? And they were like, no, you're lying. Like, no, I don't believe you. Like,
Mr. Struble, no way.
Exactly. But like, that's kind of like the thing. And then I was like, all right, well, let's look at it. So we learned about the electoral college and kind of like how that all happened in 2016. It's happened in some other elections also. And then, kids can kind of decide for themselves if they like it or not. But that's the process we have right now. We'll see what happens. But I just teach it. I just try to teach it as it is.
It's what it is.
So I mean, it's been fun though. I mean,
it's been an unforgettable first year, as you said already.
Yeah.
You can't unforget these kind of times. Hopefully, like I said, better times. But I did want to talk. So any future ideas, as in like maybe getting? I know you played sports. Maybe trying to get a coaching job, something like that.
Yeah. So
looking into that.
Well, at the middle school level, they don't really have a lot of sports. I think they have like volleyball and dance.
Do they have volleyball?
They have volleyball now.
Team now? What the heck?
I think like the whole thought process behind that was like we don't have a lot of volleyball like leagues and stuff.
Do they have men's volleyball too? Or
Yeah.
Is it just that'd
For
be
both,
lit.
yeah.
I would have played volleyball.
So I think like the thought process is like there's not a lot of volleyball leagues, whereas like there's a lot of basketball leagues, baseball leagues in Hamilton.
Yep. Okay.
So they have volleyball. I think they have dance. They
I'll
have.
give them that.
I'm forgetting something.
You got the chess club. You got robotics. Anything like that in middle school?
They have different clubs.
I
I think.
theater. They got
Yeah,
theater.
definitely. They have a play every year. A lot of these things aren't going on right now, so I don't even know exactly what.
Are they? You think they're not going to do like the middle school play and stuff?
They probably can't do the play this year. Unless you're going to do it virtually and have everyone just like play their part from home. It would be so,
right. Oh my god. Make a DVD. They could.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think they're gonna do it this year, but we'll see.
That's crazy. Like, imagine being a senior. I feel bad for my seniors last year. I mean, you were a senior graduate from college last year, and dude, that's just terrible, man. That's just
Yeah,
you really get the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I feel bad for a lot of people that were involved in like any extracurricular, but like sports wise, like
Oh my god!
imagine it's your senior year. Like that meant like the world to me when I was in high school.
Nasty at
Like
track.
playing my senior year of baseball was like
100%.
was like that was the only thing I cared about that year.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, imagine you train and you're getting ready, and then COVID happens, and now you can't play at all. So
like
yeah,
they
I really
said, Joe Biden's got the answers.
I don't think anyone has the answers. I don't think anyone has really like.
Keep it a real podcast. We got the answers. Hit that subscribe button. What's going on?
We can, yeah. I mean, people have different perspectives on how it should be handled and whatever.
Of course.
But really, we've never had something like to this extent.
Like this, like this in these times with this technology. 100%. It's really weird times. I did want to talk to you a little bit about. I wanted to talk a little bit about the death of your frat brother. Because that's something that's actually really important and really a valuable conversation. He was, tell a story.
All right. Yeah, sure. So I wasn't even prepared for you to ask me that. But no, that's okay.
Sorry.
So that was a couple of years ago. We're coming up on the 2-year anniversary.
Was it 2 years? Okay.
December 2nd will be, December 2nd was the day it happened. I think December 4th was the day he passed, like officially. But it's coming up on 2 years, basically, at TCNJ with the whole, whenever we would have parties or get-togethers, you know, we would have 2 brothers that were designated drivers for the night. And there was basically a list, and you go through the list, and, like, whoever's, turn it is, you have to drive that night.
You're not drinking, you're driving.
Exactly. Because, like, it's not like, TCNJ is not like a lot of campuses where everything's in a walkable distance. Like, I would say the house that we were having people at that night is probably like, I don't know, maybe a little less than a mile away. I don't know the exact distance, but, you know, it would be a pretty long walk or whatever. Basically, he was a designated driver that night. I was in his car that night. He brought me to the party. Whatever, we go home. And basically in the morning, at like 3 or 4 in the morning, the cops come to our main fraternity house, knocking on the door saying, you know, there's been an accident that was involving some of the people that came from here. Last night, we're trying to identify the people. So the
cops came that night?
Yeah, so they came. So I would say the accident happened around 2 in the morning. They came around like 4 or 5 in the morning to the house.
Damn.
I'm not exactly sure how they traced it back to that house or whatever. But whatever, they came there, and we find out that there was an accident. And, you know, at like 9 in the morning, you know, someone sends a message out, says, you know, Mike, his name is Michael Sott. Mike was driving last night, got into an accident. We don't know who was in his car or anything like that yet. But we don't know where this kid Anthony Galante was. We didn't know where he was. We didn't know where this kid Ryan Moore was and his girlfriend. And that's all we knew at that time. No, they hadn't came back to their rooms that night or their houses. So we end up finding out that Mike is at the trauma center in Trenton. Me and a couple of my friends drove down there, and we ended up meeting up with like half our fraternity was at that hospital that morning. As soon as we found out where he was, we all like arrived at the same time, but we all found out around the same time. So basically, to make things short, Mike was hit by a drunk driver that night while he was a designated driver. Head on, the person was going 80 in a 45 or in a 40. Hit him head on. Was trying to go around another car into oncoming traffic. Like, you know, you got to be drunk to do something like that. Like, that's just insane. Hits them head on, going 80 miles an hour. Couple days later, Mike ends up passing away. There was a couple other people in the car. Anthony Galante was in a coma for a couple months. Ryan Moore was in a coma for a few months.
God, I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were both medically induced because they were in such bad shape. Like, I know Ryan specifically, he broke his hip, his femur, his neck was broken.
Oh my God.
Just crazy amounts of damage, like all over. There was another kid named Matt. He was in the car. He luckily, I don't know, he just broke his arm and he had a concussion. He wasn't too bad. Ryan Moore's girlfriend was in the car. She had like a concussion and some I don't know, just trauma. It wasn't anything specific. But I mean, that was just like a really tough time for a lot of us at that time. I mean, like that's like a week before finals. You know, that hit us all super hard. You know, Mike was such a good guy. He would always go out of his way to do things for people. He was always that person that would tell you how much he appreciated you and, you know, what you meant to him and stuff. And that was just such a crazy time. And, you know, I just remember the whole school really came together around that time. We had like a vigil that I would say maybe, you know, a couple hundred to 1,000 people showed up to this vigil that we had, and we had some of Mike's closest friends speak at it. We didn't really know if Ryan and Anthony and some of these other guys were going to be okay. And it was just, you know, such an emotional time for me and for a lot of people. And it was just crazy. But the school, TCNJ, really stepped up to the plate for all of us. They provided like grief counseling, and they like, you know, reached out to our professors and kind of like told them what was going on. But that was like national news, really. Like that was all over. So a lot of everyone pretty much knew what was going on. But yeah, man, that's crazy that you bring that up. I was just thinking about that because it's coming up on 2 years of that happening. But yeah, I mean, I'll never forget Mike. He was such a good guy. I was in his car that night, and that's what makes it so crazy. Like, it could have been anyone in that car. It could be anyone, and that's really why we have to emphasize, like, how important it is to prevent drunk driving and things like that. But yeah, man, just a crazy time.
Yeah, man, that's it's crazy when life throws you them curveballs. But I definitely wanted to talk about that just because it's, like I said, very valuable message, very important. You know, young kids obviously are losing their minds, probably driving drunk, crazy all the time. Those statistics never get brought up on national television. It's actually a huge killer in this country, just like suicide, depression doesn't really get talked about. And these are important things that I always try to talk about, I always try to emphasize, and I appreciate you having that little honest conversation.
Yeah.
And R.I.P. Mike.
Hopefully
his family's doing well. And
I mean, just since that happened, just to like touch on this real quick, we've done like we've been involved in a lot of events to try to raise awareness for it. The Hero campaign, it's a campaign in New Jersey. You may see it if you're driving on a highway in New Jersey. You might see Mike's face on a billboard. He's on like 2 or 3 billboards around the state. The Hero campaign kind of tries to prevent drunk drivers, and also recognizes people that were killed by a drunk driver, to try to bring awareness to that. We've done a bunch of events at TCNJ since that happened. And, you know, just having those conversations, because kids really, like, don't take it serious enough. Like, still today, like, you see kids doing this kind of stuff all the time. So definitely important conversation to have.
Gotta stay safe. Gotta stay smart. Gotta care about other people. It's what it is, people.
Yeah.
It is. Eric, I think we had a great podcast. I think we had a great conversation. I appreciate you coming on the Keepin' It Real podcast with your host, Luke Vaughn. How you guys doing? But
thanks for having me, bro. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. We had a great conversation. Anybody watching, check out my podcast. Links in the description. Check out my YouTube. Check out the Instagram. Subscribe, like, comment.
Follow 'em.
Subscribe, follow. do what you got to do. Support the kid.
Good content. Good content. All the
Working
time.
on the content. But I just want to appreciate Eric. We got at least it's good to hear. It is very good to hear. We got a teacher with a good head on him, teaching our youth, coming to the middle schools with a good idea, open heart, open arms, some good experience, some good hands-on experience with a good heart, and some positive perspectives on life. So very nice conversation, very brightened up my day, brightened up the mood, even though we finished it on a little bit of a sad note, but it's what it is. It's important. Yeah. It's life, man. It's life.
Happy we talked about that.
Happy we did. Yeah. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Eric. Everybody.
Right. Thanks, bro.
Take it easy. Deuces.